Welcome to this episode of Mercy Can't Stop Her. I'm your host, Judith Ambia Obatusa, JKO. Have you ever invested your resources and your mind, your heart into something with the full intention of going the whole hog with it, only to find out that for some reason, after you got invested, you are unable to continue the journey? How disappointing that is. On today's episode, we're going to be looking at that. We're going to be looking at situations that can occur in our lives from stress, where with all our best intentions, our lovely, good motives, we've invested into things and we're unable to continue due to stress. So yesterday, I went to see a physiotherapist. Anyone that follows me on social media, especially Facebook, might have heard about how I started hiking, because hiking is something that brings me close to nature, and I love nature, just like many of us do. So I started hiking 3 weeks ago, and in fact, the second week, I did it in freezing cold rain. But I did it. And I looked forward to Saturdays when I would go hiking. I planned my life around it. I was all in. I wanted to enjoy this time with myself. When I go hiking alone. And it's just amazing. If you're able to do it, I encourage you to. But yesterday, the first time when I hiked, I made a mistake and went on a longer trail than I intended. And my first hike, instead of a 2-mile hike that I intended, turned out to be a 6-mile hike, over a 6-mile hike, actually a 10-point-something kilometer hike. That was my first hike. By the time I got to the car, I could not even lift my leg because I had like a knee sprain in 2013, in the fall of 2013. And that knee started to bother me. And this pain is so bad that for me to put my leg into the car to start to drive home would be excruciating every time I went on my long hikes. And throughout Saturday night to Sunday morning, I am in pain. I figured out that if I put a pillow under my knee, then I feel a little bit better. Thought it was something that was going to be easy to fix. My nurse practitioner said, go and see a physiotherapist. It's because you overdid it. And I went to the physiotherapist yesterday. And he checked all around. After, on the last stage of his check, he did something unusual because the pain is not like on top. It's somewhere inside, but he figured it out. He said it was runner's syndrome. You guys, look at me. Look at me that I am obese. I don't run. I'm just trying to work on the weights now. And he's not saying I have runner's syndrome. I haven't even started walking. You now say I have runner's syndrome. Oh, I was disappointed. And now, this is a day after, I don't know what to do. Because not only do I hike, I do use the treadmill every day. And then I do other walks around. You know, I was really invested. And I don't want to stop being invested. But you guys, do you know why I had that incident? Do you know what has come back to haunt me? is due to stress. Even my weight has increased the situation on that knee. And all this is a result of stress. So today I want us to talk about this issue of stress because many of us that are women, stress is a big challenge. Women in the trenches, we are living with chronic stress. Now, before we get to chronic stress, let us look at what is stress. What stress is. So I went and I Googled it. And the first thing that came up was stress is a state of mental or emotional strain or tension due to adverse or very demanding circumstances. For example, a big project at work that has very tight deadlines, or a fight, a one-off fight with your hubby, your husband, or you get into those clash of wheels with your children. That can be stressful. Or even the feeling you get when you're on a roller coaster ride. That is just regular old stress that every single one of us, especially those of us that are adults, go through. But then we get to what you call chronic stress, which is the one that creates situations like I have found myself now. This one is a constant, persistent stress, is constant, persistent stress that continues over a long period of time. For example, when a person has marriage troubles that is going on for so long, that is chronic stress. Or issues at work in a toxic work situation. That's another form of chronic stress. Or even financial troubles. This can create chronic stress in a person's life. And you know what? Some of us have all these stressors together on a chronic level going on for years. Stress activates the fight or flight response. So the body, when you are stressed, either wants to releases some hormones. The body, when you are under stress, releases some hormones. And those hormones are to help us deal with the stress. So to deal with that perceived danger, either we fight, we stand to fight the danger, or we run away, that is flight. Or for some, we just freeze. We don't know what to do, we become immobile. Another thing that could happen is something called fawning, where we begin to try to appease the threat to avoid harm. This is called the fawn response. So we begin to fawn over the threat so that it doesn't harm us. Women that are in domestic violence situations, many women in those situations, fawning is part of their stress response. Now, the body releases these hormones to help us deal with the stress. But if our body continually activates these hormones because we are in a state of chronic stress, it can lead to many other challenges that are physical, psychological, and even behavioral. For example, when we talk about behavioral, we're talking about us getting irritable. I remember when I used to be a yeller, for many women that are yellers at their children, stress is behind it. But you know what? Did I know this? I didn't understand the concept. And I feel that even when they tell us, oh, take it easy, don't stress, do some self-care, even some people that are telling us those things with all the best intentions don't really understand. They can't even give us a solution. But my sisters, there is a solution. And one big solution is to know the impact on ourselves. Who would have thought that the chronic stress I have been living in for decades will come back to haunt me? I remember the day that my knee had that misstep. It was a result of a situation that made me have to walk a long distance that I didn't plan to. And now I'm living with an injury that has come back 11 years after to make me unable to live the good lifestyle I wanted to live. You see me, I am overweight, grossly overweight. Stress is one of the reasons. Do you know that stress increases your cortisol levels in your blood, which impacts your midriff? So those wide, big fat tummy, stress is one of the things that causes it. Stress makes us become depressed, anxious. I remember, when I was younger, I used to have asthma. And my last asthma attack, I was maybe 21, many years ago. Then, just as I was turning 50, I was in a kind of job situation that I was unhappy. I was dealing with some things. And it triggered my childhood asthma. I began to not be able to breathe. I started to use an inhaler again. This is what stress can do to you. And not only did it do that, it also triggered anxiety. That I now had to get medication for anxiety. Already was dealing with depression due to some other stress. Then this was an added layer of stress. So I had to get medication for anxiety. And many times we always hear the word anxiety, depression and anxiety. The two mental illnesses that are very, very common. But for me, I have dealt with both. And I can tell you that I feel that depression is even better than anxiety. Anxiety, your heart is beating crazy. You are not able to sleep sometimes. It is awful. It is awful. It is awful. And so you have to be on medication for these things. Research has shown that exercise can play the role that medication plays in some cases. If you can do exercise every day, you can do it every day. A particular level of exercise. I was reading somebody's story because she was dealing with anxiety and depression. She goes to a place around near her house and she does a lap around the field there. One day she was so stressed out that she did 3 laps. And by the time she got to the 3rd lap, she was feeling better. And from that day on, she started to run every day. So exercise can help you. Now, your girl that's sitting here, one knee is now in need of extra attention. And now have to find other ways to provide that activity for myself. If you're listening and you have an idea, please send me a comment in the link on the podcast page or in the YouTube video. Please give me an idea because I do not know. I'm busy searching now. So I am dealing with this weight, which came out of this. Where I was going with the anxiety and antidepressants is that for some type of medication, the side effect is weight gain. So because people always talk about obesity and they kind of are judgmental about it. They think it's about, oh, you're eating a lot. Not everybody is fat because of their habits. Some people are fat because medication has given them a habit that they don't really have. And so if you are a woman in the trenches going through chronic stress, and you're having all the signs, all the symptoms on you. For example, like me, I'm overweight, and other things that can be happening in a person's life due to this chronic stress and the side effects of medication. And then you're being judged again for being fat. You're in spaces, even on social media, in person, where there are these conversations. Of course, they are not trying to hurt you, while some actually they judge you, but it impacts you as well. So we have the intersection. We have an intersection in this matter. If you're like me and you live in the white man's land, as I call it, in places like Canada, UK, Australia, United States, you are a Black person. In fact, you live in a place where you're a minority and you are Black. Because there's another thing about they call people of color and the experiences of those shades, the shades of color are different. Blacks are very mistreated in comparison with others. So if you're a Black woman, a Black person who is going through long-term stress, and then you're overweight because you're on meds or something like that, can you imagine all the layers of discrimination you're going to be dealing with every day? But you see, the thing is, regarding this discrimination, we can't do anything about how people treat us. But we have to do something about how we respond. So this issue of stress, whatever the cause of your stress, whether it's a job and or family situation, the thing is, change can't happen if we don't take control of our own responses, or let me just say reactions to the situations we found ourselves. I'm talking about this today because there are some of us who do not have a knee that is going through therapy right now, like me. You don't have anything happening to your body that is going to stop you from making a physical change. But chronic stress is something that you're dealing with. I am here to beg you. You have to address your responses or your reaction to those stressors. Like I said, you cannot do anything about people's behavior or misbehavior, but you can choose the way you respond to them. You can choose to take care of yourself. And the care of yourself starts from your mind. It is from your mind that you begin to make a change in your life. It is from your mind that you begin to change the way you are hearing what they're saying. Do you know that many times people that are mean and cruel to us are not doing it because we deserve it? And what they are saying to us is not true. What they are doing to us is a reflection of the troubled life that they have. We are not deserving of disrespect. We are not deserving of narcissistic wickedness and cruelty that we may experience from people who could be our loved ones or even our colleagues at work or any other kind of situation where you're being mistreated. You need to recognize that those things that keep us in constant defense of ourselves, keep our body in constant mode of fight or flight or fawning or freezing. We have power to change our responses. We have power to calm ourselves down so that those hormones don't get released and create damage. On this podcast, I've talked in the past about some people, they always say, why can't she leave? Why can't they leave? Sometimes people cannot leave the situation of where they live, where they have their shelter. But they can change some things. Except if your life is in danger your physical life can be harmed. If it is, for example, narcissists enjoy not talking to you because they know that it impacts you. If you recognize that somebody is a narcissist who is using that communication as a weapon against you, you have to get to the place in yourself where you disregard their communication. You have to empower yourself by reading, by listening to podcasts like this, by taking walks in nature, by joining community groups, being online. You can't just sit down and blame the person and blame your situation. How do I know this? I did it for more than a decade. For decades, I was waiting for a knight in shining armor to save me. I was waiting for the other person to realize that I was a good person and change. I was waiting for them to see that I had a good intention and love me and appreciate me as a staff, me as a family member, me as a friend, me as a neighbor, me as a church member. But my life changed when I realized that I don't need them to appreciate me or acknowledge me before I am who I am. And that's why one of the things I have put in my podcast link in previous episodes is an affirmation list from the Bible for us. I don't want you to, in 10 years' time, realize that your knee will not carry you anymore because stress has done a number on you. Stress impacts your health in so many ways. I am dealing with some health concerns that I'm working on. But with this new information, I will need prayers. I need a good strategy. Continue on the path. I was already losing weight. So you cannot afford to just allow someone who you can't even trust, someone who mistreats you, to hold the key to your joy, to your happiness. You can't. You can't give them the key to your happiness. That if they're not happy with you, you can't be happy with yourself. Do not tie your happiness to how another person treats you. Do not tie your peace to how another person treats you. Do not believe words that God hasn't spoken concerning you. If God didn't say you are those things, don't. When people that are mistreating you are calling you what you are not, and you are now accepting it, do you see there's something not right there? Someone is mistreating you. Then the person is calling you those names to make themselves feel that what they are doing to you is okay. And then you are agreeing with them. You cannot do that. If there's no one that will stand for you, you should be able to stand for yourself. The Bible says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. You can't love the other person more than you love yourself. Because the only way you can truly love is to love yourself. If you love yourself and you don't like some things, you won't do those same things to others. That's why I told you, narcissistic behavior towards a person is a sign that the other person, the narcissist, is sick. They have a problem. It's not a sign that they are mistreating is bad. Because you cannot love yourself and mistreat other people. If you love yourself, you will love others. One sign that a person doesn't love themselves is how they treat others. So today, I just want to encourage you. What are those things you can do to make yourself happy? What are those things that you like? Those things that you remember in your past, in your childhood, that make you happy. I'm going to put a link to the podcast episode I did about that. Please, my darling sister, you cannot allow stress to break your body down. Remember, I talked about behavior. Chronic stress shows up in behavior when the hormones are being constantly activated. I remember how I used to be so short with my kids. If you're a mom here and you're yelling, you find yourself yelling and not patient with your kids, it's a sign that you're chronically stressed and you need to address it. Becoming more self-aware is important. So on today's episode, I want to leave you with this. You need to go and look out for yourself. You need to know that mistreatment that you receive from others is not a sign that you're bad. Many times, it is a sign that the person mistreating you has a problem. It's not because you're bad. It's not because you're bad at work that their behavior towards you, the way they treat you is right. Some people are not good at work, but they have a boss who's supporting them, teaching them, grooming them, and they make it. And in future, they're able to say, my supervisor made a difference. So that cannot be an excuse for mistreating a person. Some women can't cook, they can't clean, but their husbands now become their teacher. When somebody loves you, they will be patient. Some women are rude to their husband, but the man loves them so much, he tells them, you are rude. You can say it this other way. That's what love does. Love is patient. Love is kind. When you are not being treated with kindness, it's a sign that the other person has a problem. Don't make it a you problem. It is a they problem. So, my darling sister, let's start from there. Don't believe negatives about yourself. You are better than those things. For the sake of your life, for your future, you need to say no to stress. I've talked in the past about meditation and all of that. I'll put a link to my podcast website, and you can go scroll down, and there's so many episodes. I've brought people who are experts to come and talk about these things on previous episodes, and I want you to take advantage of them, please. This was another wake-up call for me yesterday. And that's why I'm talking about it today. And let me tell you something, when you do this, when you fight stress, when you refuse to allow chronic stress to destroy you, when you seek ways to live above the stress or stressors in your life, mercy won't stop you. If this episode resonated with you, I want to invite you to share it with other women. We just cannot let negative people, wicked people, cruel people, narcissists in our family, at our workplace, in our environment, in our communities, on social media, win against us. We are better than this and we're stronger together. Thank you so much for listening. See you next week.